Supreme Court didn't go as far in terms of immigrant rights as people would have liked. They still said there has to be a habeas petition.
At least today, 5 Supreme Court justices said no, we're going to be a legitimate check on Donald Trump's.
Trump bragged for years about his beautiful judges. I've appointed over 230 federal judges, the most of any president, he'd say, grinning like he'd just bought the whole judiciary. But here's the funny plot twist nobody saw coming. These same judges are now telling Trump to take a seat. They're actually doing their jobs instead of kissing his orange behind. Turns out those fancy law degrees weren't just for show, and Trump's master plan just backfired spectacularly. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Remember when Trump strutted around boasting about his judicial appointments like a kid showing off his baseball card collection? Nobody's ever done what I've done with judges, he'd crow. Well, plot twist, folks. These robed minions he installed throughout the federal courts are now giving him the judicial equivalent of a middle finger.
Judges are basically saying, look, you pushed this too far. These Trump-appointed judges are saying that's not what the Supreme Court said, Donald Trump.
Trump managed to stuff the courts with over 230 federal judges during his 4 years, nearly a third of the entire federal judiciary. He didn't just appoint them, he practically trademarked them as Trump judges trademark. Every chance he got, he'd remind us these were his judges, as if he'd purchased them at a Trump judge's fire sale.
Basically saying preemptively, if you're going to do this, you gotta show me the paper, show me the evidence, show me the money.
They'll be ruling for decades, decades and decades, he'd exclaim, practically salivating at the thought of his long-term judicial revenge. But here's the delicious irony sandwich being force-fed to the former president. These same judges are now ruling against his nonsense legal arguments faster than he can post all-caps rants about it. Take Judge James Ho, a Trump appointee on the Fifth Circuit. When Trump started promising mass deportations without due process,
a lot of people were concerned about, which is that, these migrants don't exactly have on a Rolodex the name of constitutional, lawyer.
Ho basically said, that's gonna be a constitutional no from me, dog. He straight up declared that the Constitution applies to everyone within our borders, not just citizens. Trump probably needed extra ketchup on his well-done steak that night.
Now to the Trump administration's immigration crackdown as it escalates its attacks on a federal judge in the legal battle.
Supreme Court didn't go as far in terms of immigrant rights as people would have liked. They still said there has to be a habeas petition.
When Judge Trevor McFadden, another Trump pick, blocked Trump's attempt to redirect military funds for his precious border wall, Trump lost his mind. McFadden essentially told him, sorry, but Congress controls the money, not you. Imagine that. A judge actually reading the Constitution instead of Trump's Twitter feed. Revolutionary concept. Behind closed doors, Trump reportedly went full toddler tantrum mode, calling these judges backstabbers and actually asking if there was any way to fire judges who ruled against him. Spoiler alert, there isn't. That's literally the entire point of lifetime appointments, something the founding fathers designed specifically to prevent presidents from turning judges into personal legal cheerleaders.
At least today, 5 Supreme Court justices said no, we're going to be a legitimate check on Donald Trump's.
The fundamental problem here is that Trump views judges through the same lens as he views everyone else, as employees who owe him personal loyalty. In his casino-addled brain, he thinks appointing someone to a lifetime federal judgeship is the same as hiring them to manage the Mar-a-Lago buffet. These judges are demonstrating something shocking to Trump. Their robes aren't MAGA red underneath. Those MAGA-less robes are just the beginning of Trump's judicial nightmares.
Supreme Court ruling, the Supreme Court on venue ground basically reversed him, but then had that line about you still have to provide due process.
While his own appointees are merely disappointing him, the Reagan-era Republicans with decades on the bench are delivering constitutional smackdowns that have the orange one absolutely fuming. These judicial dinosaurs represent a completely different breed of conservatism, one that actually cares about boring stuff like legal precedent and separation of powers instead of blind loyalty to a president with cotton candy hair. Judge Royce Lamberth, a Reagan pick who's been making president president's cry since 1987, has zero patience for Trump's constitutional shenanigans. When Trump's team tried pushing immigration restrictions affecting transgender rights, Lamberth basically told them, "Nice try, but this isn't how the Constitution works." Can you imagine Trump's tiny hands trembling with rage when he heard that his impressive executive orders were being treated like toilet paper by some guy appointed when Walk Like an Egyptian was topping the charts? And he's not alone. Fellow Reagan appointee Judge William Alsup went nuclear on Trump's Justice Department for bringing sham documents and press releases instead of actual evidence to court. Imagine showing up to a gunfight with a water pistol filled with Diet Coke. That's basically what Trump's legal team did. These Reagan judges expect things like facts and valid legal arguments, concepts as foreign to Trump as vegetable consumption. The statistics tell the story. In the early months of his term, Trump's executive actions got rejected more than 40 times in federal courts.
To the surprise of many, including, I'll be honest, myself, the Supreme Court has denied Donald Trump's bid.
Federal judiciary sees, even if it's out of self-interest and threat, which, by the way, our framers were fine with.
That's more rejections than Trump received from banks in the 90s. These seasoned judges simply aren't impressed by "because I said so" as a legal strategy. The entire federal court system became an enormous roadblock, systematically dismantling Trump's attempts to rule by decree. How has Trump responded to these legal spankings? Like a toddler denied a second scoop of ice cream, by attacking the entire concept of judicial independence.
Federal judges are pushing back against the Trump regime's illegal orders. And
the argument on immunity is very important. The president has to have immunity. This has nothing to do with me. This has to do with a president in the future.
He's called for the impeachment of judges who dare to disagree with him, apparently forgetting that lifetime appointment doesn't come with a "unless Trump gets grumpy" clause. For a guy who claims to love the Constitution, he sure seems confused about how the whole three branches of government thing works. The irony is delicious. Trump's own appointees are discovering their spines, while Reagan's picks are bringing the constitutional hammer down even harder. It turns out that decades spent interpreting the law creates judges who value the Constitution over pleasing whatever loudmouth currently occupies the Oval Office. Who would have thought that people who dedicated their lives to upholding the law might actually care about upholding the law?
In just hours, the court demanding more information about these deportation flights and whether they violated the judge's order.
So here we are, folks. The courts, yes, the very courts that Trump stacked, are proving to be the ultimate punchline to his presidency. What's truly beautiful is watching our judicial system do exactly what it was designed to do. Tell presidents they can't always get their way. The courts aren't Team Trump or Team anyone. They're Team Constitution. This whole saga proves that America's checks and balances work even when tested by a guy who thinks separation of powers means keeping the TV remote away from Melania. The founding fathers built a system so sturdy that not even Trump's tantrums can break it. Now that's what I call American engineering.